Hi, this is author Mark Coggins, and today I'm going to be giving a little presentation on my new novel, The Big Wake Up. I've been giving this presentation on the book tour I've been doing with Michelle Gagnon, but for those of you who haven't been able to come to one of the book signings at a physical bookstore, I thought I'd do it on the internet so you could see it as well. We're looking at the cover of the novel, which is based on an illustration by Owen Smith. I was very pleased to have Owen do the cover illustration. He's a well-known artist and illustrator. He's done covers for The New Yorker, The Rolling Stone, and he also did a great series of posters for the city of San Francisco based on characters in the Maltese Falcon, and they were placed along Market Street. The characters in this illustration are my private eye August Reardon and his sidekick Chris Duckworth, and as you can see, they're inside a crypt and they're opening a coffin. You may be surprised to learn that the coffin they're opening belongs to Maria Eva Duarte de Peron, or Evita, if you've seen the play or the movie. And if you have seen the play or the movie, you're very familiar with her life story. She was born out of wedlock in a rural area of Argentina, and she moved to Buenos Aires and became associated with Juan Peron, who was then a rising politician and military leader. Eventually, Peron was elected president of the country, and she became First Lady. She was very popular with the people, particularly the poor people, because she did a number of social programs to improve their lot. But then, unfortunately, she died at an early age of 33 of cervical cancer. What most people don't know is what happened to her after she died. This is a large part of the backstory for the book. There was, of course, a big funeral, and she was mourned by the whole country, especially, as I mentioned, by the poorer folks in the country. And because of her popularity, Peron decided to do something very unusual. He decided to specially preserve her body, similar to what has been done with Lenin's body, for instance, or Mao Zedong's body. And his intention was to build this gigantic memorial to put her body in and leave it on display for all times. And the memorial was going to be taller than any building that had ever been built at that time. And this is a model of what her coffin would look like inside the memorial. And the preservation, as I said, was unique. It was something that was done by a doctor named Dr. Arya, and he developed these techniques himself, and supposedly they were the most advanced techniques for preserving bodies that have ever been created, up until that point at least. Supposedly the body was so well preserved that she actually looked better than she did in real life. And it was said that if the body was in a dark room with the lights off, it glowed with this strange glow. Dr. Arya, who you can see here sort of creepily leaning over her, worked 1.5 years preserving the body. So he really spent a long time, and he got it just the way that he wanted it. But unfortunately, before Juan Peron could begin construction of this memorial, he was deposed and he was kicked out of the country. And that set into life, or set into motion, this incredible chain of events involving the movement of her body, because the new leaders of the military government did not want her to become a rallying point for the people. There were still a lot of people that supported Peron at that point and were in favor of Peronism. And they did not want to put her in any place where she could become sort of a martyr or a saint to the movement for Peronism. And so they were kind of in a quandary, though. They didn't want to destroy it because they knew that would cause problems. There would just be a backlash. They didn't want to bury it in ground that wasn't consecrated by the Catholic Church. That would also be perceived as a big insult to her and would likely cause backlash. So they vacillated for quite a time, and they kept the body hidden, and to help them hide it, they made duplicates of it. They made like 3 or 4 duplicates of the body, and they shuttled the body and the duplicates all around Buenos Aires, kind of like an MX missile, if you remember from the 80s when we were doing that to hide the missiles from the Soviets. And these strange things started happening to the people that were guarding the body. One man was in charge of guarding the real body, and he kept it up in his attic. And he became very fascinated with it. He became obsessed about it, and he spent a lot of, let's say, quality time with the body without its clothes on. And his wife became suspicious about what he was doing in the attic. He hadn't explained that he had Evita's body up there. So one day she decided to go up into the attic, and she barged in on him. Now, as I said, the Peronists were trying to find the body, so all the people that were guarding it were on alert for anyone trying to get it back. And unfortunately, and this is a true story, unfortunately he thought his wife was one of the Peronists trying to come and get it, and he shot and killed her, and she died. So that's one example of what happened. Another example is they were transporting the body. At one point it was actually hidden in a movie theater behind the projection screen. They were transporting the body away from the theater, I believe, and it was in a truck. And the truck got in a horrible accident. It rolled over, flipped, and actually caught on fire. The windows in the truck were smashed, and the driver was horribly maimed by the glass from the windows. But just before the truck rolled, the doors of the back swung open, and the coffin bounced out onto the street and was completely unharmed. So Evita survived the accident, but yet the people involved in transporting her body were critically injured. So there became sort of a feeling that there was a curse on the body, kind of like King Tut and the people who opened his tomb, that kind of thing. So the leaders, again, were struggling, and finally they decided that the best thing to do was to get it out of the country. So they had several of the duplicates and Evita shipped over to Europe, and the duplicates were buried in various countries, and the real body was buried under a fake name in Italy. And there it stayed for 12 years underground. And during this time in Argentina, people were still searching for it. They were still trying to find it. They were trying to pressure the military dictatorship to reveal the location of the body. And in fact, at one point, the then president of the country, was kidnapped by some of these Peronists, and he was taken out to a field, and a gun was held to his head, and they were threatening to kill him unless he revealed the location of the body. He didn't, and they did kill him. Later, he was buried, and the Peronists decided to kidnap his body to hold it for ransom until Evita's body was given back. So this kept going on, and eventually the military dictatorship started to lose power. They started to lose support, and they wanted to throw a sop to the Peronists. So they decided to dig up the body where it was buried in Italy, and they brought it back to Juan Peron, who was then in exile in Spain, living in Madrid. It turns out that Dr. Aria was still alive at that time, and he came and helped fix up the body. It was supposedly still remarkably preserved, even though it had been underground for 12 years. There was some damage, but he corrected it. And Peron kept the body in his living room in an open coffin after he got it back and Aria worked on it. And supposedly he encouraged his new wife, Isabel, to climb in the coffin with the body. Now, Isabel was someone he had met in Mexico, I believe, during his exile. I believe she's actually an exotic dancer or something like that originally. But anyway, she was encouraged to get into the coffin with Evita, because the power from Evita would supposedly rub off on her, and she would retain that. So time goes on. The military dictatorship starts to fail, and eventually Peron indeed can come back to the country, and this is now the early 70s. He comes back to the country, he brings Isabel with him, and he becomes president of the country once more. He lasts for 6 months, and then he dies of a heart attack. Guess who becomes president of the country? Isabel does. And she was the first female president in the Western Hemisphere. So the idea that some of Evita's power had transferred to her did seem to be realized in that occurrence. So now she's president of the country, and things are going wrong, and she's not doing too well. She's starting to lose support of the people. She's not as popular as Juan or Evita. And so she decides that she needs to bring back Evita's body to help her prop her presidency up. So they bring it back to the country, and they do some more preservation work on it. You can see here's a slide with someone actually, I think, painting her toes. They fix it up some more, and for a while she lies in state with Juan Peron, who hadn't been buried yet, and eventually both of them are buried. Juan Peron is buried in a a ranch that he owned, or part of the country where he owned this ranch. Later, the people who are against Peron actually dig up his body as well. And because his power was associated with the gestures he would make with his arms, they decided to cut off his arms, which I guess was intended to sort of remove the strength that he had from his arms. Evita, as I said, was buried in the Duarte family crypt in a famous cemetery in Buenos Aires called La Recoleta. Or at least that's what they told people. So now we come to the conceit of my book. In my book, what happens is, rather than sending the real body back from Spain, some of the military leaders actually managed to intercept it and send a duplicate, another one of these duplicates that they made, back to Argentina. And in my book, at least, the body that's in this special crypt is not the real Evita, it's a duplicate. And by the way, this crypt has been specially engineered. It goes like 3 stories underground, and there's a series of vaults inside vaults and a series of alarms around these different vaults to make sure that Evita's body is never disturbed, because they're so concerned about someone trying to get it again. So it does make sense that, conceivably, that someone would attempt to get the body or misdirect what happened to Evita by sending a duplicate. So as I said, in my book, Evita is not in Buenos Aires. Instead, her real body has been sent to the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. And in my book, as I said, the 2 characters are my private August Reardon and his sidekick Chris Duckworth. So Reardon gets hired by some folks from Argentina to search for the body of what they claim is their relative, which they want to bring back to bury in Argentina. Turns out over time he realizes that what he's really doing is searching for Evita's body. This particular picture here is a crypt that I use kind of as a model for the one that Evita supposedly buried in the Bay Area. And that, as you can tell from the illustration on the jacket, there's sort of an arch that the 2 characters you can see in the background behind them. So I'm not going to tell you exactly which cemetery that's in, but that's a pretty well-known cemetery in the Bay Area, that particular crypt. So once Reardon gets involved in this mad hunt for Evita, there's actually 3 groups, it turns out, that are involved with him, that are competing with him. There's one group that's deposed or less successful politicians from Argentina. Their goal is to get control of the body and bring it back in triumph to cement power for themselves, and perhaps the father of the family hopes to become the new president of Argentina by bringing Evita back. So he's a Peronist. Another group is made up of ex-military people who were involved in the original deception, and they want, for once and for all, just to destroy the body at this point. So their goal is to get hold of the body and destroy it. It turns out that knowledge of exactly where the body was buried was lost, because some of the older men in the military who were involved in the plot died before they could reveal the secret location in the Bay Area where the body was secreted. So their goal is simply to get control of it. The third group, and perhaps the most dangerous one, is a group that is represented by a woman named Isis. Isis is an expert in techniques of ancient Egyptian mummification. And her goal is to gain control of the body just like everyone else, but she sees it more as a prize in and of itself. She's interested in, as I said, mummification. She wants to work on the body again and bring it to even greater heights in terms of the preservation, make Evita better than she's ever been. She's working for the current government in Argentina, who, of course, wants to retain the body and bring it back, also in triumph to the country, to cement their current position of power. They're starting to lose some of the power and support they have within the country. So that's kind of the setup, if you will, for the book. I wanted just to talk a little bit about some of the illustrations that I used in front of each chapter. Each chapter is illustrated with a cemetery, a photograph I've taken in a cemetery, usually of statuary of some sort. And some of the photographs or some of the statues are rather well known or famous in and of themselves. The one in the upper left there of the woman holding the door is one from La Recoleta in Buenos Aires. And that's a picture of a statue of a woman, and there's a little bit of backstory about her as well. Apparently she was getting ready for opera, to attend a session of the opera in the early 1900s, and she passed out, and her parents felt or thought that she had died. The doctor said that she had died. So she was buried in La Recoleta, and then, unfortunately, the legend goes at least, it turned out that she was still alive, and so they later found the coffin lid moved open, and at that point she really had died. So this statue sort of shows her opening the door to her crypt to get out, if you will. The statue in the middle is a picture of a famous popular singer in France, and that's from a cemetery in Paris. She's sort of like the Cher of France, I guess. And so she had this very elaborate and very spectacular statue of herself made to put on her gravestone. And then the one in the upper right-hand corner there is actually another fairly well-known statue in another Parisian cemetery. That particular statue is of a politician and a scientist from the French Revolution, but the picture, or the statue, or a picture of the statue, was used on, I think, a fairly well-known album, rock album. So as I said, these photographs are used to illustrate each chapter. Sometimes they're directly relevant to some of the things that are happening in the chapter, or sometimes they're just sort of generally used to set the mood. But I took them in all sorts of different countries, including Buenos Aires, as I said, France, Berlin, and certainly there's a number of photographs from around the Bay Area and cemeteries in the Bay Area. And then just to close, I thought I'd share with you a few quotes, some of which I used as epigraphs in the book. The first one comes from Thomas Eloy Martinez, and I learned a lot about the backstory from Evita for him. He has a book called Santa Evita, where he describes the strange afterlife, if you will, that she had after she was dead, and the strange things that happened to her body after she died, in sort of a novel or narrative form. But he did a lot of research talking to all the people involved, and that's where a lot of these bizarre details came from. He's a fairly well-known writer, apart from that book, and has written a lot about Evita and Peronism. And he says, Evita is the Robin Hood of the 20th century, the Cinderella of the tango, and the Sleeping Beauty of Latin America. So part of the motivation for the title, of course, is that Evita is kind of like a sleeping beauty, at any point ready to be wakened again, because her body has been such a political football and has been used in this way and brought out of the ground and brought into the public many times. So that was sort of a motivation for the title, and I liked that quote, and I actually use it within the book. I have one of the characters quoting that. And then, of course, I've got a couple of other quotes from, one is from J.D. Salinger, Catcher in the Rye, and of course the main character is Holden Caulfield, and he's talking about what happens to people when they die, and he says, boy, when you're dead, they really fix you up. I hope to hell when I do die, somebody has sense enough just to dump me in the river or something, which of course is exactly counter to what happens with Evita, the big elaborate ceremony and the sort of objectification of her body that happens. And then finally, as you might expect, the title is also motivated by a reference to one of my favorite books by Raymond Chandler, The Big Sleep. And this is the very famous last couple of sentences in The Big Sleep. What did it matter where you lay when you were dead? In a dirty sump or in a marble tower on the top of a high hill? You were dead. You were asleep in the big sleep. You were not bothered by things like that. And that's my presentation on the backstory of my latest novel, The Big Wake Up. If you've been intrigued by what you heard, I hope you'll take some time to check the book out. It's been released simultaneously in hardcover format as well as trade paperback, and is available at independent booksellers, chain bookstores, as well as, of course, online booksellers like Amazon.com. And we hope to have an ebook edition shortly, which you can get on your Kindle or other ebook readers. And of course, the other alternative is to go to the library and check it out from there, or encourage them to purchase it if they don't have it. If you'd like to see more information about the book or myself, you can go to my website, which is www.markcoggins.com, markcoggins.com. Just click on the graphic on the home page, and that'll take you directly to the page that has the details about the book. And you can find more information about the book, some of the great reviews we've been getting, including a starred review from Publishers Weekly, and links to other content. Thanks very much for taking time to listen. Bye-bye now.